Hello everybody, it's your old pal Tuna here, and welcome back to another video. As you can tell, things are a little bit different than usual. This is volume 2 of my Tuna Talks mini-series here on the channel. So basically, I invite my friends to come and talk about being an illustrator, a convention artist, and all of that fun stuff. And today I have with me Lisa LaRose, who in the Vancouver circuit requires no introduction because Lisa is a god amongst us here. And I'm super excited that she agreed to come and hang out in my apartment so we could talk all about conventions here today. So hello Lisa, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, hi, I'm Lisa LaRose. I am a Vancouver artist, painter of pop surrealism, illustration, some comic art. I mostly make my income through doing conventions full time, but I also dabble in a lot of other things on the side, such as having my art in stores.
Yeah, as we all know, you need 10 million streams of income to make this business work.
As we may have learned from, everything shutting down for a while, and there was no conventions for 2 years, that putting all of your income onto that one thing is kind of bad.
Yes, and there's so many ways that we can make money in this world, and that's part of what makes it so much fun. Now we met, I recall, at Fan Expo Canada, or Fan Expo Vancouver in 2016 or 2017?
Something, that's right when I moved here, so I was doing Fan Expo Canada and then Haru Matsuri.
Yeah, and I remember our tables were next to each other and your style just blew me away. Obviously, you've got the amazing colors. I'll put some examples of Lisa's work so that everyone can see how beautiful it is. And in particular, I think it was the skeleton in the spacesuit that you had the original, or you had a really big version of it there. And ever since then I was I need to talk to that person and I need to be that person's friend, and here we are now. And we literally never get a chance to hang out.
We don't. It's weird because all of my artist friends, I see them more at conventions. It's oh hey, I haven't seen you so long. It's well, we live not that far, we should just do art. And then it's oh, I'm busy.
Yeah, I was literally making plans with another one of my convention friends, and it was oh, are you free in 2 weeks? No? Okay, how about 3? Sounds good, we'll book it.
Okay, people are you want to hang out? I'm March.
Yeah,
we can make sure I have a week, I think,
and
March.
I think I first emailed you to do this in November or something like that. So here we are now.
Here we are.
But okay, let's just start with something simple here. I want to know what inspired you to get on this path that you're on now.
It was kind of more of an accident. Well, less accident, more I was in a place where I was trying a lot of things. That's why this series is so cool to me, is because I really think that there's a lot of ways artists can make money. And so it was just one of the ones I was trying. I started working in video games. Okay. So that's what I went to school for. 2008, the Art Institute, got my video game art and design. And I worked in video games for 5 years. And then I was you know what, I really like painting. My favorite part of doing the modeling is doing the texturing. My favorite part is making the illustrations. So I was kind of already transitioning less in the game art focus and more illustration focus. So I was looking at animation industry, comic book, magazine, kidlit, and I ended up being okay, well, where are other places I can do stuff? I was putting stuff in stores for the first time and trying little art walks and markets and Comic-Cons. So I think that was in 2015 is when I started doing shows. So
almost 10-year reunion.
Oh my gosh, I'll have to be a happy 10 years.
Yeah, everybody pays 10% more for the 10-year reunion.
Time to up my prices.
Yeah,
bring out the old stuff that looks real bad.
Well, I was gonna ask you, when you started doing, obviously you started in video games, so most of what you were doing was digital illustration.
Yeah.
Were you painting before that, before you decided to step out of that, or was that when you stepped into physical painting?
I was always big into painting as a kid, and it was just something I would do a little bit on the side, every once in a while, be oh, I feel like doing a painting, or someone would ask can you do this personal commission? Sure, why not? And I would just do a little bit of acrylic painting just in my life. But it wasn't a technique I was working on. The reason I do this now is actually because one of the shows I did in 2015 is called the Edmonton Art Walk.
Okay.
And it's very much like the Paint-In in Victoria, where it's just artists on the street. You set up your little table and the street is just full of artists, and it's really promoting like making original, traditional work. And so I would have like some of my digital illustration prints, but it was like, here I'm bringing stuff from some classes I took. I did a year off at ACAD, so I had like some like, painting
from school
assignments. I was like, yeah, these look pretty cool. Some stuff from high school that I've held on to that I'm like, these assignments were really cool. And then I was trying to make like a new painting or two for it. And the painting I made, not for the 2015 one, I should show you that one. It's an umbrella girl, and I really like it, but it's like, maybe I need to do like a revisit.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
It's really cool. I sold the original to that. And the prints did pretty well. And then in 2016, that's when I painted Starfish.
Okay.
So that one is still like a main painting for me and really popular. And so when I started doing like Comic-Cons, I had like my digital illustration, my fan art, but I also like had this painting of just like, oh, I thought they would look cool and I wanted to hang it on my wall. Sold the original immediately at the art walk, which was sad, but like, oh, okay, people kind of like this. So then I painted Breathe, which is the girl with the bubbles, and Life, which is the skeleton with the flowers, like immediately in like 2017.
Maybe
I think
it was the
this
skeleton with the
2017.
flowers
Yeah,
one that I liked.
that one's really popular, and I like to bring the original out. So like that became more as I was starting to do more and more Comic-Cons. It became more popular than the fan art. Like I was selling more of those prints than, not that I was really great at fan art, but I was like Steven Universe, okay, cool. And I did some Undertale, that was really popular, but I'm like hitting up like a market of like teenage boys. And
do teenage boys have as much money?
They don't have a lot of money.
Not the target audience of choice.
A lot of like younger kids asking their parents for the print, and their parents saying no. So like I'd be maybe making more small stuff.
And the parents want to buy the nice posters to like, you know, or the original art.
So
maybe.
I'm in a different like market demographic than I was back then, and it wasn't until 2019 actually that I made a transition of no more fan art.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. So I was like half fan art, half like my own traditional art for a while, half because it's scary making that jump.
I was gonna say, I know that I have, like, I've talked about it before on the channel for my journey, is that when I started doing conventions, I was mostly doing fan art, and a lot of that is based on like what you see other people doing and what your friends are doing, and like the pressure to create something that is commercially viable versus making the art that you want to make. I always say it's like about finding the sweet spot between those two things.
Yeah.
And so when you made that jump, it wasn't like you decided one day that you were going to do that. You were doing all of these
planning
events
towards it, knowing like it's coming, and it wasn't just like, okay, it was like, okay, I have a whole new setup. This is what my brand looks like. We're buying banners. We're buying like, instead of doing the like little grid cubes on the table, which I was doing a lot, I was like experimenting with the banners behind me. And I just like did basically the setup I have now, which is like the big, like I wanted a gallery wall.
Okay.
So I wanted to look like there's space between the art, because whenever I put my art all together, really like in a print wall, it looked really busy.
Understood. Yes.
And hard to look at, and I work in a lot of color palettes, so it can be very confusing. And the other reason it took me so long was just my art takes a long time to make. It doubled the amount of hours when I went from digital to traditional, because it was like, okay, I'm already spending 40 hours on an illustration, time to spend 100+ hours per illustration. Like, yay.
You work so hard. And like, how many conventions did you do in 2023?
I average probably, I could look at the list, but usually 20+. So it's like usually hitting around like 20, 22.
So we're talking basically every other weekend the whole year.
It's more like you have 2 per month.
Yeah.
Is what it works out to, except for I'll have like months where I have none, and then the August where you have every weekend and you die, and October I did every weekend because I love the spooky markets and I fit into the vibe. And so it's like, okay, I did none in December. I did none in June.
Damn. None in December?
None in December. I'm like,
you just were like, no.
I'm like, no, we're going all Halloween markets, no Christmas markets. That was like, this is my vacation.
And
I'm off.
But did you then, because like, where are you finding time to do these 100-hour paintings?
I find no time.
Yes.
So like that's also why like I'm trying to make art that has, and it's tricky to make art that like will sell for a longer period of time, and like that is nice to be not doing fan art, because when I was doing fan art, it was like very much like what's hot now, and then it would turn over really quickly.
Yeah.
So you had to really be on the ball. I'm more thinking like what is going to sell. Starfish I painted in 2016. It's 2024. I've been selling prints of that for 8 years now. Like that's the kind of, and not every painting I make lasts like that, but as I'm trying to find ways to make it work.
Okay.
I'm finding like what kind of art do I want to make, and how can I make that work for me? And it's a lot more like, okay, I can give it more life by putting it on different kinds of products, and like now I can like make money on it in different ways. I could license it for a magazine. I could license it for an album cover, so that like that 100-hour piece is making me
Have you ever
revenue.
heard of art rental?
I
you
like
rent?
in like the
Yeah.
Vancouver Art Gallery. I have, and it kind of scares me, but I want to try it.
Yeah, because
where
I know
it's
like the film industry needs to access set deck
Yes.
stuff, and like that's like basically passive income. Obviously,
Yes.
your painting could be
I would-
damaged, but
Yes.
hopefully insurance would be involved.
I love the idea of like it being rented but not sold.
Yeah.
As someone who doesn't want to sell
Do
originals.
you keep your originals?
Technically they're for sale. That's something I'm working on, is like I don't want to bring them to a lot of shows because there's no space for them. They're really big. They could get damaged.
Yeah.
And the average buyer is not in the price point of like $500+. So usually I leave them at home and I say, if you're interested, let me know. I'll tell you what the price, the size, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I think that like I really need, and this is what I'm currently
Okay.
right now, a task I'm working on is like updating my website so that I can have like the store. I didn't want to sell them through Etsy and have Etsy take a big
25%, whatever it is now.
of
Yeah.
a $3,000 sale,
Yeah.
and then like that sucks. So I've been working on my website. Once that's up, I will have a place where I can just put all my originals for sale, and then people can know ahead of time, maybe make an installment plan for people.
Listen,
Stuff
installment
like that.
plans. That's
I've
what
sold
I do.
a couple originals. Like I said, I sold Starfish and I sold the Toad Queen original.
Yeah.
So it's like there are people actively inquiring, but it just,
You need a manager. Is what
I
you
do need a
You
manager. I'm working
sidekick.
on that.
So yeah,
I'm hiring someone.
You have some plans for the future, for the near
Yeah.
future. Like, let me know.
That's part of it, is
Yeah.
like you were asking about how do I have time. I want to make 10 paintings a year. I'm averaging 6.
okay.
That's like, hey, that's not bad.
Yeah.
If I can get 6 paintings that are big and do well, and like that's not including like little practice stuff, like
Right. Yeah. I mean, your little pieces that you did
Yeah.
for the slice were so cute. And I can
did-
imagine those would fly if you sold the originals in
I've
person.
been selling those. So I have actually sold more originals technically, because I've sold like 4 or 5 from that
Yeah.
series, and they're like smaller, more affordable, and I have like, I don't know, the ability to sell them. I just haven't had the energy to put forward. It's like you kind of balance like
So you
how
need
much
help.
time. I need help.
Yes.
The next step in my business is help.
Yes.
I need to have more time to make art
Yes.
and less time spent doing inventory, doing
Yeah. Because I
All
feel
the
like when
rest.
I have a market
you the
coming up,
same?
it's like, I'm like, I feel like I can't justify it at this point because I don't know. I just feel like I can't yet. But when I'm setting up for a market, let's say my market is Saturday and Sunday, I feel like I'm spending at least 3 full days before that, like doing
least.
inventory, like pricing stuff, sleeving stuff, whatever the hell
Yeah,
it is that
yeah.
I need to do. If you're doing them every other weekend, that's like, it could be 50% of your time is being spent that you're then spending, because if you're going to work,
Yep.
you're not going to work 7 days a week, right? We don't work 7 days a week, right?
I mean, if it's art and I'm
Yeah.
having fun,
It's
is
not
it
work if you
work?
love it.
If I'm like watching anime while like pin grading and pin packaging, is it work?
Yes, it is.
It is.
And
I'm
so
dying.
That's the problem. And so if you're spending all of that time on these, like, I'm going to call them like fiddly things, but obviously they're important. Like, what's the solution then for you? Are you bringing someone in to help you? Are you contracting out some sort of company to do it like out of house, like there's not a lot
Yeah.
of services like
There
that,
are
but there
a couple, like I think White Rabbit,
That's the one that came to mind.
White Squirrel.
White Squirrel.
White Squirrel.
It's White Squirrel.
White Squirrel is like, I just am such a like control freak, and I'm working on that actively because I like to do everything, and I know my business, and it takes time to train. Businesses like White Squirrel are very good, and for people who don't like, I like packaging stuff, and I like
shipping things.
I like talking with customers. So it's like, it's not that I don't, it's just I don't have enough time, and they take a portion of your sales, and it's like, I'm already doing this. So my solution for me is more like, I need to hire staff who can just like do, like, I can train to do like my tasks that aren't art related, so like they can take over.
So something that like is popular for the viewers in high level conventioneering is what's called proxy selling. And this is, I wouldn't call it controversial, but it's not always permitted depending on the event itself. But it's basically where somebody else is vending for you. And this allows most of the time people to double dip weekends, because like you say, the busy August, there's like 3 or 4 events across Canada in one weekend. Is it something that you've thought about?
It's something I am doing.
You're doing.
Mostly through the couple people who have like assisted me with shows, and I'm like, I totally trust you to run a show by yourself. I had to do last year because Calgary Expo is my top show, and I can't miss it. But I also got into TCAF, and they were the same weekend. So I drove. Did you know I did this?
I think I remember this, yes.
I drove to Calgary, like did Thursday, set up my booth, and then Friday flew into Toronto, and then did Saturday, Sunday, came back, and like picked up my stuff and drove back to Vancouver. So I died.
Yes.
But I'm going to have that person who ran my table, my friend Riley, do Calgary Expo again, because C2E2's on the same weekend. And I'm like, it's such a problem when you're like me and you're like, I need to like do a certain amount of shows to have a certain amount of income, because that allows me a certain amount of freedom.
And what is this freedom? You work constantly, right?
It's the freedom to do whatever kind of art I make. Like my art business is make whatever I want. If I don't want to make another painting, I don't have to make another painting. I'll make a pin, I'll make a sticker, like whatever. Like you've been doing a lot of like t-shirt, like block printing is like the thing that's been like tickling my brain.
It's
like
everybody's
just fun. I want to do like a lineup cut, and I want to like block print a shirt, and it's just like, ooh. And I think that is so important to nurture as an artist, and like that is, you know, we struggle because we want to commercialize everything, and it kind of ruins part of art. And so I try to lean into anything my brain is like, ooh, that would be fun, or that would be silly. And so I have paintings that are kind of like duds, but I painted them because they're silly and they're fun, and the couple people who appreciate them will buy it. And it's like, you kind of like mix in the things you want to do. It's balance.
I feel like I'm in a similar position, like very grateful to be able to have a lot of control over what I'm making, and not like feeling like I'm in like a fan art like cycle, or feeling like I'm like burnt out on a theme that I picked to be my thing. Like, I've heard so many things
themes you come up with all the time.
Well, I mean, my formula is literally one thing plus another thing equal new thing, and that's just literally everything.
That's a lot of my paintings, to be honest. And like people are like, how do you come up with your ideas? And I'm like, that's a super valid question. Sometimes it's just like a dumb pun. Sometimes two things look cool together. Like this will look cool.
I feel like you had like a lollipop with like a fly in it or something. And I was like, that is just, I'm obsessed with it. It's just the simplest thing.
It's like, it's so simple. It's like, oh, it's like bugs and amber, but something you would eat. And fun. The other benefit I really like from conventions is having people react to my stuff in person, because it's so nice, you know, posting on Instagram and getting like comments and chatting with people, but there's nothing like seeing someone physically react in person. Like that is such a different experience. Do you feel the same? It's so validating. Like I tell people, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm not buying anything. Like, no, please just come and compliment me. I'll just gobble up all the compliments, because I have such a like mental illness.
Neurodivergence,
imposter syndrome, whatever it is currently, but it makes me feel more like I'm making art for a reason.
Yeah.
Because it is impacting people.
I've always felt like, and I wonder if this is something that like a lot of us commercial artists will have in common, is my relationship with art has from its inception been like about the viewer and the creator.
You can't cut them out.
Yes.
So like there's some people, controversy, who are like, oh, you're invalid because you're making art for selling, you're commercializing it.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, it's like a response. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, people like this. I'm more excited to make more stuff like this. If people don't like this, oh well, I made it for me.
Yeah.
That's okay.
It's a little conversation, and sometimes the conversation dries up for a second, or you got to change the subject real quick because the viewer's not like listening. And I don't think there's any shame in like being a sellout. Like, what does that even mean?
Well, here's the thing that I want to mention as someone who started doing conventions with just trying a ton of different styles, original fan art. Like I was like doing like different kinds of style digitally as well, and I have a lot of styles I really like in that still, but it's just like people would respond to illustrations but wouldn't necessarily want to buy prints. And so I found there's a wall hangability aspect. So this art might be good on a journal, it might be good in an art book. People really like the story. Like there's a different way I could possibly sell that illustration, but if I want to sell prints, I'm thinking about, would I hang this on my wall? Wall hangability.
Yes.
And that took me a little time to discover and kind of figure out, and it's still like, I'm trying to do more paintings that are more back to like fantasy illustration.
Sure.
That have characters and story, and like running into that wall hangability aspect. I'm like, how can I have it be both?
Yeah.
How can I have that like Magic the Gathering card art illustration, but people want to hang it? So it's
That's
tricky.
the question.
It's tricky.
And that's when I put out my like Markets 101 video like 2 weeks ago or whatever, and one of the things that I said is like, when you're making something, consider why somebody would want to buy it, because they're not just going to buy a poster because they like you have to incentivize slightly more than they like it. Like, okay, well, anybody can like anything, but why are they going to hang it on their wall?
Yeah.
Are they going to like think of the functionality of the object? Why would they buy it with your art on it specifically? And that's something that gets overlooked, I feel, when you're early in the game, or when you are not, when you're more focused on like, well, I just want to make the art that I want to make. And like, that's great, but you have to understand that in order for it to be commercially viable, there has to be a little bit of give and take or reasoning. Why you do anything. Amazing. We're very off script. Let's see. What other questions do we have to talk about here? Highlight of your career so far. I would love to hear about the best projects that you've done, stuff that you'll like remember, take forward as you grow and adapt.
I think that the best project so far was the art box I did for the city of Vancouver, because not only did they pay me to make whatever art I want, I was selected. There's like 400 plus applicants, and there was like, they selected like 18 people, and I was like, honored, thank you. And then like they paid me a decent amount to make art of whatever I want, and then I get to see it. It's on the street. It's out there.
Too.
It's
Every
like
time I see it, I'm like,
downtown. I can't remember, Seymour and like East Hastings, I think it's on the corner of, just like outside of like that SFU library building.
If you're from Vancouver, you've probably seen it.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, there it is, this is the thing I made, yay.
I think that that's a really good segue also to going back to talking about like diversifying what you do to make money as an artist. So like, what are some other projects that you've done that might be stuff that people, because like people think about being a full-time artist or a full-time like self-employed illustrator, and they think, well, you know, I sell commissions direct to consumer, I sell products, and you know, maybe they consider like retail or something like that. So like, what are some like other ideas that you've had or experiences that you've done?
Something I am looking into that I haven't done very much is the gallery scene. Like that's really different. But it's basically like you have like an agent, or you have like a place, and they take a portion of that, and that's where I'm like,
much too.
That's so much. So I'm like really like like on the outskirts, like, do I fit into this world? And then grant writing is something I'm trying to get into, where it's like you could, and this I think is what scares people. Both of those scare people from being an artist. So I haven't dabbled too much and I still make a living. But I'm like, those are things I see myself in more like a long-term aspect.
I know people who build their entire career off of grants. So like this is this like secret hack. I know Canada is very liberal with it.
BC Arts Council and Canada Arts Council, and there's a ton of money allotted for art in Canada. And actually my US friends are actually very jealous. They don't have the government. They are because we have a federal government. I think their grants and programs are all run through corporations and like schools and like.
So it might be a little bit more.
It's a different, like more like regional, like you're looking at your specific city and maybe a specific program or a nonprofit running a specific grant versus Canada Arts Council, where you're like, I have an idea for a project and this is a great way to do something that's not commercially viable because that's the kind of stuff they want to support. Is they don't want to really support you making products. They want to support you exploring.
I know there's
mental health. They're like
huge, like
because
you're storytelling and you can tell Canadian stories.
Yes,
like you just base it in Canada.
Yeah,
and you're like, it's Canadian.
It's Canadian. So like, there's a whole art to writing grants, and there are professional grant writers, and it's not uncommon to write a grant and to fail at it. And I think the important thing, if anyone who's trying to be a free, like a full-time artist, the important thing is to have the resilience of a cockroach. I think Rainy Loon said that. I'm like, that is so true because the only reason I'm still an artist is I'm just stubborn as heck. And I changed my art career a few times on this journey. I've changed the way my income looks along this journey. It's gonna change again, but I'm just like, no, I'm just an artist. This is all the skill points have gone into art. I can't do anything else at this point.
So you might as well just keep trying. I call it being shameless. Like I am also looking into retail opportunities because like I need to make some merch sales. I need to like and it's such a great way of like getting your brand out there too.
I
like
love
people
retail.
finding you in stores.
But it's been super great. Anytime I have a store and like maybe I can introduce you to some of my other stores.
See, life hacks. Make friends with other people who do art because we all literally, the whole point of what we do is to uplift each other. We all win when we're all succeeding and making
absolutely.
bank.
I understand when people are new and the like jealousy that comes with like seeing someone else succeed when you're trying so hard and you haven't gotten any success yet. But I always tell people like that is a you problem and you work on that and like you want everyone to succeed. It's not that you want the people who are succeeding to fail. It's that you also want to be successful. So I'm like those feelings aren't bad or invalid, but like rein it in. Like you have to be willing, and you don't know what they went through to get that success already. Like they probably had struggles that you didn't see beforehand and now and it's so hard to like judge your success by other people's success. Just don't look at other people.
Well, but that's the thing is like we are like in a pretty privileged position because we are both like very established in our careers and we've been very lucky and resilient to get to the point that we're at now. And the whole point of talking about this publicly with everyone is to bother Nori, apparently. Is to like try to just impart some amount of our life experience so that everyone can succeed. So that like we're not here to like we're not trying to make you like jealous. Like, look, if you're successful. It's like, no, we're trying to like help you to also
be successful. Like, I'm so excited when people are like starting out as an artist and any times people are like, oh, I'm thinking about doing conventions. I'm like, let me tell you. Let me give you the information.
You are always showing up in our Artist Alley Discord to help.
I'm like,
you're always there.
It's my favorite thing. I love people DM me on Instagram all the time. I'm like, people ask me like, where do you get your prints from? I'm like, please DM me because I will send you like, here's a list of places to try because I go to a lot of different places. Like, I'm like, oh, here's one that's good for traveling. Here's one that's good like I need to ship stuff. Here's my local place.
And as long as people come and they're polite when they ask, like, of course you want to help them out.
I think the only thing I didn't share was like where I get my puzzles, but I'm like, that is a big, long, complicated
Yes.
conversation.
Yes.
And so I can't just drop that because like maybe this puzzle place would actually be bad and I'm scared to
Yes.
give that to you and you have a bad experience, or like you pay thousands of dollars for puzzles they don't sell. So I'm like, no, I can't give you that. But if we are in a relationship, like as an artist, we can have that conversation. Then maybe after that conversation, I can tell you about it.
Yeah,
But it's just
especially for like
I
more
can't
complicated
just-
things, like stuffed
Yeah.
animals as well. It's like I
so
was talking to some of my
complicated.
friends and they're like, yeah, I can give you my contact, but like that's pretty much as far as I could
Yeah.
go, like good luck, have fun kind of thing.
I think someone had a graphic that was really good where it's like, how easy is it to make a product? And it's like prints and stickers, and you can just kind of share that information. It's super easy to get into. And then like up on the rung was like keychains and like pins.
Yeah.
And then there was like a highest tier, which is like, these are all like really customizable products. You
Yeah.
have to find a very specific
Like
manufacturer.
500 quantity.
And it's like the like building.
Yeah.
The building.
Mm,
Building like doing
Foundation.
conventions.
Yeah.
And building when doing products.
I always feel like sometimes it's difficult for me to give advice to people because I'm so far removed from
the start?
position that they're in that it's like, oh, let me just tell you what I do. And then they're just like, what the fuck? This is like way too much information for the level. So yeah, that can be difficult, which is why we're here to give you advice, but like connect with peers, connect with people who are at the same like step of their journey that you are, or like within, you know, a little.
Everything is scary until you know a friend who's also doing it. And then it's not scary. You're like, oh, my friend can do it. I can do it. And that's how I started conventions. It's like, oh, a friend of mine has a table in Artist Alley. I think this is possible, because when you are like on the other side of the table, you're really like glamorizing and seeing like that's so unattainable. And which is funny because like that was me years ago, and then I would buy people's stuff and be like, oh, it's so amazing. And now I'm peers with them and we're friends. I'm like, I bought your prints.
Yeah.
10
Be
years
cool.
ago.
Be cool. Yeah.
Be cool.
Yeah.
It's not so hard, but it is harder than ever doing conventions.
Yeah.
I think just more people are applying.
Yeah.
Table prices have gone up.
Yeah.
So like the barrier to entry for like new people has gone up a lot.
That's why I do appreciate the smaller shows like your Haramatsuri and like Minikami here, and how they are doing Lotto now.
Yeah.
Because
I feel bad for applying.
But we're
I feel
just
bad for applying. Yeah.
like they're not going to
lottery.
choose. Yeah. So I think that the lottery format of selection is the best for a lot of smaller shows because the competition is more than ever. I think coming out of the pandemic, a lot of people reassess their values and we're like, do I want to work this job for the rest of my life? No, I want to be an artist. I want to make this work. And so a lot of people are moving into it, but it may be competitive because there's limited resources, but only within that box. So like going back to opportunity, like if you are applying to conventions and you're not getting into conventions, like try something else.
Yeah.
You don't just...
There's other types of shows besides Comic-Con also.
Yes.
And I tell this all the time to people who are, because I do a lot of types of shows. I do craft shows, art shows. People I know do music festivals.
Yeah. Oh my God. I've had so many people recommend it to me and I'm like,
like,
I don't think that's for me, but like, I
can't-
think I get it.
Outdoor show, anything outdoors, anything like where I have to have a tent is like,
Yeah.
ooh, but like there's different types of shows. And I did a wrestling show.
I am obsessed with that. That's great.
They had a lucha libre thing, and I'm like, they have vendors there? Okay.
And you just slipped in?
Yeah,
And did
just
you bring the
slipped in.
comic and the prints?
Yeah, I
And
had
they
a
liked it all?
10-foot booth, and I'm just like, here, well, I have my art.
Yeah.
And then, like, I did okay, but it's just like, there's different types of shows you can explore. So if you're having a hard time getting into the big Comic Cons, it's like, I always tell people, like, apply to out-of-town shows, anime shows. The barrier to entry is a little lower.
A smaller town or something.
And I love smaller town shows because they're so excited for anyone coming out there, and maybe there's less artists, so there's less competition for like making those sales. You can kind of like chat with people a lot more.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did
good
a bunch of
vibes.
the ones I did last year were small, which were
small.
slow, but like not in like definitely was enough to justify showing up and stuff like that. So yeah, and one thing as well that I like to suggest is to like niche down. So like your wrestling event, that's exactly that point. My friend who was in the last interview, go watch that after this one, is like a frog illustrator. She always does like frog plush, frog pins, and she goes to reptile shows.
Perfect.
Right? And I never would have thought that you could do that. well, there's FrogCon is
FrogCon.
literally an anime, an art show for frog
FrogCon.
people. So anyway, that's like, be creative.
Yes.
Right?
And I like what you said in the last video where you're saying the way you find like your market 101.
Yeah.
The way you find conventions is you're looking at what's running right now, because that's when they'll be advertising it. That's when it's going to come up on Google search. That's when you're seeing the posters around downtown and you can pop in and see how is it attended? Are people making sales? You can even walk up to an artist and chat with them and buy something from them maybe. And then ask like, oh, how's the show going? Are these good sales? Do you like this show? Take little notes, and then you've got a whole repertoire for next year. It's really hard when you're like rearing to go to like wait a year, but
it's part of the process.
It takes a long time to fill a booth with art.
Damn right.
So
it's gonna catch up on you real quick.
It will catch up on you real quick if you have a whole year and you say, I'm gonna make 10 prints. That is gonna be a very great start, because I think when I started I had like 6. And it's like a meager, like you're clipping little things here. And I was like making little buttons of whatever. Handmade.
Yeah. Keep the cost low and then grow. It's all about growing. So one big question, I want to know what are some of like the difficulties that you've had to overcome, because we've been talking about growing and adapting. Are there any like moments in your career so far that you felt were like, you had to have a reckoning and you really had to kind of reconsider what you were doing? Any like failures, any kind of lows basically that you have fought through? My
biggest low just in general art career was when I call my hungry artist phase, because I don't like the term starving artist, because it's like, no, I'm still paying my bills and I'm still like okay, but I'm hungry, as in I'm desperate to take any gig. And that was when I quit working in video games and I was moving over to this new like illustration freelance career, and I was like living off my savings. I was like, how can I live as cheaply as possible instead of going back and finishing my school degree, because I found at this point I don't really need a degree. I just need to like focus a portfolio. I need to take some specific art classes. I had an idea of like the steps. So it was like, I need better illustration skills and I need a portfolio, and then I can apply to gigs. I can send emails to art directors. I just need time to do that. And living really cheaply, living off my savings, but then like also like, okay, now I need gigs, and you apply to like, or at least I did, 100 a month, 100 a month. I'm just spending hours and hours, and this is a lot of your time that you're not making art, is looking for gigs, and then maybe 10% get back to you. So out of 100, 10 would email me back, and then maybe 1 would turn into a gig. And when you're desperate, you feel like you have to apply for everything, and you feel like devastated when you don't get stuff and it doesn't work out, or if there was one you were really excited for that you didn't get, and that just like hungry need to apply for everything is really agitating on my anxiety. And luckily you get used to the rejection, and actually hearing back a rejection email has become like a fresh air. Like, they actually looked at this. They looked at my application. Thank you so much for actually following back with a rejection. So I actually have better rejection sensitivity now because of all of that I had to go through. Resilience, the cockroach. And
do you find though, like, and this is, I started my career very similar, where I was like spraying applications to anything that had the word Illustrator in it. And I'm like, yes, I know how to draw. And I think like now, even though that's not how I do things anymore, I still have a difficult time saying no to anything.
It took a while. But I practice actively just automatically starts at no now.
Damn.
So then that's part of like the freedom I felt like coming out of that. And I always look back at that and being like, wow, what a freedom I have to say no to everything.
Yeah.
And like, that's when people ask me, do you do commissions? I said, technically no. But asterisks, sometimes they get through, because I say you have to compete with me getting to do whatever I want.
Right.
So you're well,
an idea.
Not necessarily. Like, I'm so stressed out when like a particular commission is like so out of my realm. I'm like,
Right.
no, that would stress me out too much. I feel like I wouldn't do it a good job.
It's more like it has to be in your wheelhouse.
It still has to be in my wheelhouse. There's not an amount of money. Well,
Right.
we're
only human.
We're only human. I love money. I love the ability money gives me to pay my bills and live and buy food these days. And what I'm finding now with the very limited commissions I do is the ones who pay a lot of money are the ones who really appreciate your time and value you as an artist. The ones who have a very limited budget have made a lot of demands out of the work that I'm producing. And I'm like, you are not paying me enough for the amount of revisions or the amount of care you want me to put in. So I'm very confused.
And you learn from those as well.
You
And then
do.
you start to create documents that are like, you know,
Yeah.
these are the terms of our agreement. And
Yes.
like, we love a contract.
We love a
Like,
contract.
If someone comes to me and they appear to be from some sort of business and they do not have a contract for me, I'm like, I don't know about this, because you probably don't know what we're about to do here if you're not coming prepared to this. But anyway, real quick, like last topic, I guess, like traveling for conventions. We talked about that, and that's something that I've dabbled with here and there. That's something that you do exclusively,
A lot.
basically. And so do you want to just like lay down some of your like favorite tips or just anything that you feel like people need to be aware of entering into a traveling con life?
Yes. So when I was starting, I did any show I could drive to. And I did that for like a year, saving up money, but also getting the data, because I wanted to make sure I could make a certain amount consistently before I flew to a show, because the price of flying and maybe like more expensive hotels, more expensive food, whatever it is going to raise the overall cost of a show. So I wanted to be making, I think my bar was like $2,000 consistently before I like flew to a show, because like that was going to be my cost. So I wanted to at least break even and not lose money. So that would be step one, is like know your business, know when it's stable, and like you're consistent enough that you're like, I feel confident. Though some people do just dive right in. I'm like, all to you. I had to save up money, because it's like literally I didn't have the extra funds to pay for. I think it would cost me $2,000 to do a show if you're paying like $600 for a flight and a hotel and your food, and you're like, I don't count the food in the convention cost. I'm gonna eat anyway. But it's like a part of like, I know I'm gonna be spending more money in general. So it's like, okay, I need to be making this consistently. And then the second thing is having a display that like can collapse. And I have a big heavy duty display these days with like
lights and shit.
And I've gotten really good. You get really good at packing a suitcase. So you should also factor in the fact that like you're probably bringing 2 suitcases full of merch.
Yeah, and you got to pay like $80 for each suitcase.
Yes.
When you're flying.
Yes.
Do you ship anything ahead usually?
I've been starting to do that more often. Back when I was starting out, like I didn't have so much extra merch that I could do that. But now I'm like, oh yeah, you ship a box of prints for $20 rather than having your suitcase be overweight.
Seriously. Yeah. And it's not, it's no big deal.
Yeah. So I've gotten really good at like figuring out like how much I can bring in my carry-on.
Yeah. Put the heavy stuff on the carry-on.
All the
and
heavy
then when you're
stuff,
lifting it up, you're like, I'm not struggling.
They'll check it for free consistently now. Like they're always looking for people to check it for free. So now when I go to drop off my other bags, I'm like, oh, would you like to check this carry-on for free? And they do that before I even go through security. And it's like, this is the best. So you can't have like any electronics in that, but it's just like, if you have a suitcase that is all of your print merchandise and it is 30 pounds. It's so lovely. And they're so happy to check it for you for free. So it's like predicting how much merch to bring. And that's where doing the year of all the shows, my favorite thing is my spreadsheets where I track all my data for all of the stuff I sell, so I can look back and be like, a similar show of this size, I tend to sell about this many prints, so I'm going to bring just a little bit more to this show, and I can really start predicting stuff now.
That's crazy.
I can project like, okay, a show this size, I'm probably going to make around this much. But it's like you start predicting things and projecting things. I'm like, I love data.
I think like that's where like, so you do conventions, that's basically basically the full-time
That's
job is doing the
basically,
conventions.
yes.
And so this is just a testament to like the level that is required in order for
Yes.
it to be your full-time job.
Yes.
It's this attention to detail.
I think the like some sort of data tracking, so you have just an idea of like what you should be bringing.
Yeah.
Is kind of required.
Yeah.
It should be.
I'm like YOLO strats though. Like I have what I have, and aside from the apparel, everything is so small. I only sell little itty bitty prints. I don't have posters. Like,
that is the nice thing about pins.
sticker sheets. Like I just stuff them in my coat pocket. You know?
Yeah, your coat pocket.
Yeah, shuffling onto the plane. But yeah, like those are great tips.
Yeah.
I want to know, what are you up to this year? Do you have any big projects coming up that you're excited about? Any events maybe that you're trying for the first time? Just like what's on the close horizon for Lisa LaRose art?
I am planning to release another batch of puzzles.
Oh.
People have been waiting and asking, and I was kind of waiting for the last batch to sell out so I have more room for them. So I'm probably going to launch a Kickstarter.
Cool.
So it's always yeah, I'd like to do more puzzles. Oh, I have to do the whole to-do list of like I have to order the samples of those designs.
Yep.
And then like
6 months in advance start
prepping, prep a Kickstarter. So probably once I get back from my next batch of like shows in March, I'll be like, okay, time to like lay down this Kickstarter, maybe launch Kickstarter in April. I have ADHD, so I really work well with impulsivity, and I'm like, now's the time to do a Kickstarter, let's go, and like just build it all and then launch it and be like, hi, and then just make a lot of paintings, and then someday I'll get back to making my comic about wrestlers, but
it's almost like art is hard.
Art is so hard.
And takes time.
It takes so much time, but I'm so addicted to just making things that I'm like, oh, well, it's worth it.
That's what it is. It's like a compulsion.
Yes,
to
it is
create.
a compulsion. It's a need I have to just do it.
I just keep saying that we need like 7 more days a week
Yeah.
so that I can spend 7 of them working on like work stuff, and then spend 7 of them like making art for fun.
Yeah.
I think that would solve the problem.
I think so.
So hopefully one day we'll
Yeah.
get to that. But thank you so much for joining me here for this interview. I really hope that you guys enjoyed all of the wonderful information spilling out of this beautiful mouth here on my couch.
Thank you for having me.
Any like last?
Oh gosh, we could talk all day.
I think we actually could.
I think that I have too much information. If you want anything.
Part two. Part 2.
Oh, part 2. Oh yeah, we just keep going all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to ask me questions, feel free to find me online and then just start messaging me.
Where can we find you online, Lisa?
I'm Lisa LaRose Art on everything. So if you Google that name, if you go on Instagram, if you go on Twitter, if you go on, I don't know,
YouTube?
I technically tried YouTube for like a second, and so I probably have like the name. I probably
For when you become,
for when I start doing YouTube videos, but
inevitably.
I'm very bad at anything that requires ongoing commitment, and this is why I also don't do a Patreon, but I have the name. It's like anything that I have to do on a regular basis on an ongoing system, it kind of like just kills my creativity.
And that's how I function.
And I'm like so proud of you and so like amazed that you do that. I'm like, I am not built for that. And
we both are doing it though.
We're both doing it though. It's
Different
so we're
strokes.
figuring out a different way to do it.
Obsessed.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks so much.
Stay sparkly. Don't let the cruel world dull your shine, and I will see you next time.